Good evening and welcome to Bobcat Family Connection, Developing Study Skill Habits for Life. We are very excited for you to spend your evening with us here tonight. This presentation will be recorded and posted on our school website. Please feel free to visit our website to see our first two presentations of this school year. Throughout the evening, there will be a Q&A that is open for you to ask any questions to our presenters. This will be answered at the end if you have any questions. At this time, I'm excited to introduce Mr. Kassouf, one of our math teachers here at Bel Air High School.
Mr. Kassouf, you're muted.
That's amazing. Great way to get started. All right, as I was saying, good evening. For those who I have not had the privilege to meet, my name is Andrew Kassouf, and I teach math at Bel Air High School, where I've been for the last 16 of my 17-year career so far. I also teach math at Hartford Community College as well. I'm really excited about this event and this particular topic tonight, as I have a passion for student growth. Math is the vehicle that I use to reach the goal or achieve the goal of helping students become better students. And so this strategy that I'd like to present to you this evening, this framework for studying, I believe is the perfect framework. And it's something that I was introduced to back in 9th grade in my Honors Algebra 2 class with Mr. Draper. And we're going to get into that today. I'll walk you through an overview that will hopefully help you improve your performance just a little bit, and maybe even a lot of it as you get familiar with this strategy and you work with it and really commit to that. This will also, in addition to helping you increase performance, I believe will help reduce some test anxiety. So we're going to jump into our first slide tonight. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about where this came from. So as I said, Mr. Draper in my 9th grade Honors Algebra 2 class presented this, and as a high school student myself at that time, thought, I don't need this. I don't know, I know everything. I'm in high school. I got this. You're an adult, and I've got this under control. And I did okay in his class and didn't really use the strategy, but kind of kept it in the back of my mind. And then when I was in a history class, sophomore year of college, I was getting a D, and my parents only paid for C's or better. So I needed to get that D up. And I thought to myself, well, this strategy that's been in the back of my head, let me try that. And let's see, maybe he knew what he was talking about. And as a college student, I've begun to learn that I didn't really know everything. And I needed adults in my life and other folks in my life to help coach and encourage me. And so I gave the strategy a try, and I improved my grade from a D to a B in a matter of a couple weeks. And I was like, hey, this works. But I still didn't know why until my master's degree. And I learned a lot of different brain research and kind of how our brains learn, which helped me understand why this works. So before I give you the best strategy in my mind, which I've been using now since college repeatedly for many years, I want to tell you a little bit about your brain, how that works, and we'll get into some of that. I encourage you to take some notes, maybe ask questions if you have them this evening, and that you might consider committing to try this out for the rest of the second quarter and maybe the whole third quarter to see if this is something that will help you, as I believe it will. So on to the next slide here. I've got a couple questions for you. and this will help you understand a little bit about your brain. The first question that I have for you is this, and hopefully you are watching parents and students together, and so there might be a few of you around. So let's have a little competition, and let's see who's going to be the first to answer this question. What is 2 plus 2? And by this point, you've probably said 4. That's because in your brain, the question is asked, and then it goes and finds that information. It brings it right back to spit that out. Now, 2 plus 2, since you've learned that information, is something that you have gone and recalled so many times over and over and over again that the connection in your brain is a thick connection. It's a short connection so that it can pick that information up quickly because it knows that 2 plus 2 is important. And probably in your life, you've worked with that hundreds, if not thousands of times. Maybe not as a specific question, 2 plus 2, but as a much broader question that might have been something involved. Now for our next question. Again, still a competition with those that are watching with you. The first person to answer, we're looking to see who that is. And the question is, what did you have for lunch on March 1st, 2010? Now, you probably didn't have an answer for it. If you did, that's incredible. And that kind of connection in your brain is more like this USB cord. The question is asked, your brain goes looking for the information, and maybe it can find it, but chances are it's not there anymore because your brain has decided that that is not necessarily a very important piece of information. And so as we look at the next slide, this is something that is a picture from the Disney movie Inside Out. And I personally love this movie because the brain science is excellent. And you can learn a lot about how your brain learns and how it functions in a really entertaining way. In this picture, we see all these colored marbles stacked up in categories in sort of a filing system or a shelf of memories. And the 2 or 3 little guys with the vacuums and the clipboard, those are called forgetters. And their job is to go through all of the memories and find the grayed out memories, those grayed marbles, which are things that, like what you ate on March 1st in 2010 for lunch, might have been not an important thing, and so your brain has just gotten rid of that. If you've seen the movie, you know about Bing Bong, and he ended up in the abyss with the forgotten memories as well. So to give you a little reference there. In order to make sure that we can reduce our test anxiety and be best prepared for our test and improve our performance is to have as many of these 2 plus 2 memories in our brain with the material being taught and learned and less of the lunch memories. So with that being said, we'll move on to the strategy. This is the moment that hopefully you've been waiting for in anticipation. It's very simple. Bathe your brain in the content. So we begin studying for the test right at the beginning of the unit. And we're going to spend maybe 15 or 20 minutes a night, only 5 days a week. So maybe you don't get to it on Wednesday, but Saturday you schedule it to spend that 15 or 20 minutes working through material. 5 days a week, 15 to 20 minutes, that's all we're asking for. That is the commercials of an hour-long television show. So for me, I would push pause at the beginning of the show with my DVR and set a timer for 20 minutes. At the end of that time, I would stop my study session, I'd push play, skip the commercials, and at the end of the hour, I'm right, at exactly the same point, lost no time. but instead I use that commercial time more effectively. And there's many other ways that you could maybe schedule just 15 to 20 minutes, 5 days a week to go back over class notes. So again, I teach math. In my math class, we fill out notes, we go through some problems. The students, you guys have an answer key because if you're following along with. And so you might cover up those answers or go to It's Learning and print a blank copy of the notes and work those problems maybe 2 days after we learned it as if they're new problems. And then see, did you get the same result that we did in class? The more times that you go over the material, the more 2 + 2 connections you're creating, because you're telling your brain that that information is important. When you're learning a language, the vocabulary, that's something that's very important. And you want to make sure that you understand and know the vocabulary. So more times going over that information is creating these 2 + 2 connections and less of these flexible, what did I have for lunch on March 1st connections. Now, there is a caution here and something that you need to be aware of. As we look at the next slide, you may have heard that practice makes perfect. But that's a lie. I'm sorry to tell you. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And so we want to make sure that we're practicing correct things. And if you, Ms. Benfield would click 2 more times, perfect practice makes perfect. So as you're going over the material, bathing your brain, trying to create as many 2 + 2 connections in your brain with that material, and less of these, while the information is still flexible and easy to change, you want to change it. Imagine if you heard and learned that 2 + 2 is 5. And tonight is the first time somebody told you 2 + 2 is actually 4. Changing a connection like this in your brain is much harder than changing one of these connections. So when you find yourself stuck, and I'm not really sure what, how you got that answer in class as you're going over the notes, or I don't know even where to begin. That's a perfect time to send an email to your teacher, to see them before or after class, and ask a question. Maybe even raise your hand in class and ask the question right there in the chat, so that you make sure that when you're turning this kind of connection into this kind of connection, you are practicing correct information. That is a major caution and something to be aware of. As we move to the last slide for my time with you tonight, again, in summary, I'm just asking for you to designate 15 to 20 minutes a night for 5 days a week to bathe your brain in the material from a course for that chapter. And pick 2 classes, 1 or 2 classes to try this out in. Maybe the 2 courses that you're struggling with the most, or that you are traditionally more anxious about the material on the test. One that you don't necessarily feel you might perform the best. And commit to just those 2 classes. Develop a weekly schedule. Write down on paper or in a calendar. I use the Google Calendar on my phone and computer. There's also a calendar built into Microsoft 365 that you have access to on the school computer. Find a place to schedule out when are you going to do these 15 to 20 minute sessions. Then as you commit, write it down on paper. Sign it as a commitment to yourself, because you are the one driving the bus as the student. You are the one who controls your destiny. You decide what your success is going to look like and what that's going to be. So as you make that commitment to yourself, invite your folks in and have them see that paper. Maybe they sign the paper as well to be accountability partners for you, to help keep you accountable to this commitment you're making to yourself in those couple classes. And then maybe post that contract on the refrigerator so that as you go to grab a snack, you eat your lunch, eat your dinner, you're seeing that, hey, I got to make sure that I'm going to do that study time in addition to any homework or anything like that. Right now, with our virtual learning, we're not assigning graded homework. So that extra time of 15 or 20 minutes could be used in that time frame. So it's a great opportunity for us right now to practice the strategy so that when we return to in-person learning, you already are an expert in this framework. Now, I'm really excited tonight because we have Miss Sebastiani, one of our special education teachers, with us, and I've had the privilege to work with her in many capacities, most recently as volleyball coaches. She really has a passion for learning and student success. And what she's going to share with us tonight is how we might focus those 15 or 20 minutes. She's going to give us some concrete strategies that fit into this framework well, so that you can be successful and you're not stuck saying, well, okay, I'm going to commit to 15 or 20 minutes, but what do I do? What does that look like? Often students tell us when in a parent conference or when we meet with them one-on-one and they're struggling, I'm going to do better next quarter because I'm going to study harder. But what does that look like? And so I provided a framework, and Ms. Sebastiani is now going to share some specifics for how you might work in that to be successful. Ms. Sebastiani?
Hey, Mr. Kasu, do you mind if I borrow that malleable memory that you got over there?
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. So, hi, I'm Mrs. Sebastiani, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys tonight. And for those viewing afterwards, I hope you really get a lot of strategies out of that. But yes, Mr. Kasuf is absolutely correct. We definitely want to take our, excuse me, I think I lost my connection. Can you guys see me okay? Awesome. Can you see me now? Awesome. All right. Little bit of glitches there. So Mr. Kasuf is correct that we want to take the things that we learned. So this is your memory in a given lesson that's malleable. You're still developing the concept day to day. And once you know you have correct information, we want you to commit to those 15 minutes. But sometimes we're not sure why or how. So Mr. Kasuf explained the why. I'm going to explain the how. All those details about how could you effectively spend 15 minutes so it really sticks in your memory. Now, what you just experienced, you've been online with us now for 19 minutes. So that's the equivalent time that we're expecting or asking you to make a commitment this quarter for 5 days a week on just one class that you know you want to do better in. So let's take a minute to do a quick brain break, because your brain, just like you do after a study skills session at home, you're going to need a break because you're going to be working. Do me a favor. You guys have been sitting here in front of a screen. You've probably been in the screen all day. Take your right hand and let's touch your nose. No one else is watching. I can't see you. You can see me, so I can look the fool, but you're fine. Touch your nose, then take your other hand, your left hand, and wrap it around and touch your ear. What we want to try to do is switch so that you guys can see all the benefits of getting our body up and moving. So we're going to switch here, then here, then here, and do that 10 times in a row. Now, maybe you didn't do this very well at the beginning, and that's okay, but we're trying to get the blood flowing to your body to oxygenate and really invigorate your brain so it's ready to learn. So now we're going to get into the how. Mr. Kasuf and Mr. Redmond, can you guys see my video okay?
Yep, you're back up.
Yep. I'm back up? Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so just like you, your teachers have been there. We ourselves have had moments where we've crammed. I actually surveyed all the entire staff at Ballard High School and I asked, be honest, have you ever crammed for a test? We had a ton of responses that said yes. But then I asked them, what advice would they give their high school or college selves, that person that was cramming for a test the night before? And on this slide, you'll see These are the responses. This is what your teachers wish they knew in high school. You're going to see they wish it was just that they studied small amounts each day. Don't wait, that it's a process, Ms. Zorbach says. It's not a product. And that's exactly what Mr. Kasuf's commitment that he's asking you to make is all about. It's not the night before that you study. It's the very beginning of the unit, and you're studying every day just a little bit. And the benefit of doing that at night is that that's actually at a time when we're sleeping that your brain can process all that information and turn it into long-term memory. So all that malleable new information that you got in geometry class or Spanish or German or whatever it is that you're choosing is right now a little bit flexible. You practice it a little bit at night, your brain processes it, and it starts to become a more permanent connection in your brain, something that is an easy route to find come test day. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so here's that strategy once again. Commit in your mind right now, what class are you thinking about where you could use that study strategy and really feel the difference when you go to that next test? Okay, 15 to 20 minutes, 5 nights a week. Now let's go to the how. Next slide, please. All right, so I just want to let you know who I am a little bit so you understand and kind of can trust that I've been there. I've been there. I've been the person to cram, and I've been there to see other students who've crammed for their tests, especially in math. They just don't know how to study. And over these 10 years, I've seen class after class, specifically teaching 9th grade intervention classes for English and math, and taken studies on the brain and how our brain develops and learns. And I've seen students who struggle. They might have, they might think or dream in another language. They might have a processing disorder. And 9 times out of 10, they don't have that commitment and they don't have the strategies to study. And then they feel worse and worse and they avoid it more. So what I'm here to say is everybody can do this. In our next slide, you're going to see, as a special educator, I work with students with learning disabilities, and it's the students that have processing disorders where their brain processes information in different ways. Those are the students that actually benefit the most from this strategy. It's not every straight A student that needs to do this, taking AP classes. It's everybody, no matter where you're at. And when you have a processing disorder, you have to actually do the strategy more. It's going to take practice with this flexible memory many times where it might appear all jumbled up and confused. And if we practice it, then it becomes more permanent. Okay, so now you've committed, you recognize that you might need this strategy, that procrastinating, cramming does not work. But sometimes we need what I call in like a game, like a booster. We need something that's extra effective that can help us get to learning our material faster and more efficient. So let's take a look at those strategies in our next slide. It's not going to happen by sitting on your bed and just reading. That is actually the lowest form of being able to take information in, hearing and just listening to what other people have done. In fact, the way to boost your memory is to do an experience. You have to engage in the material and show curiosity or try something new or do something with the information, because when we experience things, our experiences at the end of the day are what we remember most. We don't remember what our teacher said 7 days ago word for word. We just remember the experience and having to do things. So on this next slide, think about when you work and retain information and learn best. How can you practice engaging your brain and your memory for 15 minutes? Well, it all depends on what kind of learner you are. In this next slide I have, we want to talk about the 4 types of learners. Some of you out there watching right now are artistic, talented, musical people. You're the kind of people I envy, where you can listen to a song and you know every single word. Other people, you're the doers. You like to go outside, hands-on learning. You'd rather do a science lab any day of the week than read a textbook. Then there's people, and I'm kind of a combination of a communicator as well, where you like to communicate social issues. You're always knowing what your friends are going through. You're getting advice from multiple people, and then you form your own opinion. And last but not least, we have our interpreter learners. You like to watch and observe. You want to see what everybody else is doing. You're connecting in your mind how this connects to the movie you've just recently seen, or your friend's experience, or what you've heard in the news. You're the interpreter. And for each of these learners and styles, you have tons of strategies on how you can boost your 15 minutes instead of just sitting on a screen and reading. So we're going to go through, by the end of this presentation, you as a learner should have at least 2 strategies you leave with tonight that you can try out as you make that commitment for 15 minutes of studying each night. So let's take a look at our artistic people. Okay. All right. So musical strategies. Some people, music is a distraction, but if you are more musical based and you can remember things better, there's a couple things you can do. One is you can spend your 15 minutes with a carefully selected song choice, something that is going to be connected to the concept. Maybe you're learning Spanish and you want a song with Spanish in the background. This becomes that concept's theme song. And when you listen to it over and over again, it's going to trigger what you were studying as you were listening to it. Another idea, if visually you're more artistic, is to make your notes colorful. If Ms. Benfield, you could click one more time, we're going to have an example here of how I've made math notes more visual. So this was a complicated topic for our algebra class where we were looking at different formulas. And as this person studying, I could have just easily copied down the formula and then done it a few times, which is important to do. But it was also important to color code the formula. Why? Because then I could see a pattern more easily. I could see that my exponents were written in pink. My first terms were purple. My common ratios or common differences were green. And then I could see that pattern and apply it to any kind of problem. Because as we all know, you're not going to get the same problems that you do in practice day-to-day in class as you do in the test. So musical, artistic people, take those 2 strategies and try them. Now let's go on to our doers. And this, again, you might fit into multiple categories. But there is always the benefit of having the old-fashioned flashcards that you make. But here's a different take on it. A lot of times, one of our most powerful ways to remember things is when we remember an important event that happened to us, we often remember where we were. For some generations, it was December 7th. People knew where they were. For my generation, it's learning and remembering where I was 9/11. For you, students, as your generation, you're going to remember the last day of school, March 13th, that we had in person before we shut down. Those are very powerful memories. So how can we use that to our advantage to make our brain better at recalling them? Well, instead of just studying flashcards in one spot, for instance, if you're teaching and learning about mitosis, the cell cycle in biology, and you know that there's 4 different phases to that, well, take a flashcard and go to one location in your home or outside and study that one part of the cell cycle. Then go to another spot, study the second cycle, then the third, and then the 4th. When you've studied all 4, then don't take your flashcards with you. Go to the location and quiz yourself about everything you remember about that part of the cycle. Another great working and moving strategy, really dedicated towards math, is a walk and talk math problem. We are so used to doing math on our screens and on tiny print on lined paper. If you have poster paper available to you, write the problem out. Maybe you're doing something like the quadratic formula that you see on the screen, and write it out big on a poster. Go through the problems very large and work through the steps step by step correctly. Remember, we want to do perfect practice. Then go onto the poster and step on it, and step on each step physically. And as you're moving, talk out loud about what the step is or why you're doing it. When you move through a math problem, you remember it better. Okay, so maybe these strategies haven't worked for you yet because you're that verbal person. Well, we're in a virtual environment as this video has gone live. And maybe we're still in it when you come back to this video and you're watching it on the school website. But it doesn't mean that you can't talk to a human. There's nothing against taking a reliable study buddy in your classes and working with them, as long as they're committed the same way you are and they have a specific goal so that your conversations are focused. Working through a topic or a conversation and then realizing you might have misinformation is great at the beginning of a unit, so you can still make it flexible and change it before it becomes permanent. Now, what do you do if you can't talk out loud to somebody? Mom and dad are busy working. You've got a lot of brothers and sisters running around the house. Believe me, I get it. I've been there. Well, on our Office 365 platform, there's an ability to speak to your computer. Ms. Benfield, could you click next so we can see that visual? In Word, you can select this button for dictation. And what this allows you to do is you could spend 15 minutes talking to your computer as if it's a journal and describing the things that you learned in a particular class that day and the concepts. And you can see it live being typed in. Save it in a journal folder, and the next night come back to it, add to it, and read through. The week before the test, you got a whole journal of information of your own words and what you learned to refer to, and it's going to be much more powerful. Our last people, our interpreters. Here we go. For you, connections are so important, and we use concept maps and graphic organizers all the time as teachers. But that's from our brain, and we're doing the work to help you make those connections. What's more powerful for you is to make your own. Perhaps you have a complicated topic, Civil War, and there's multiple factors that were impacting the beginning of the Civil War and all the outcomes after it in the recuperation and revitalization of all the towns. Because that's so complex and there's so many different dates, there's different people, there's different factors, it's important for you to draw the connection. So you can use Word, you can do it by hand, make your own concept map and study that, and ask your teacher if you're missing anything. Am I missing a factor? Is this not really connected? Is this a cause and effect, or is it not? Okay. To add some humor for those interpreters, if that also is something you've tried and you're still not successful, turn again to that old school flashcard strategy, but make it humorous. We also remember funny moments better in our life. So find a meme, find a GIF that speaks to you, and use that on the opposite side of your flashcard and make it connect. How could we connect the struggle of this poor little squirrel in the face of adversity? You know, that connects to us struggling right now to find learning strategies. And you know what? We're going to succeed. All right, so those are 8 concepts. Now, in our next slide, we're assuming now that you've made the commitment, you've attempted these strategies, you've tried some of these booster strategies to help your memory stick a little bit better and become more permanent, as we say. But then comes test day. And I see it every day. And we as adults have had test anxiety moments. We all have. What I want to say to you is 3 things. Take pride. The fact that you're here tonight or watching this video later on, and you've spent this time to learn about strategies, that is a commitment, and that's something you should be proud of. And the effort you've put forth, even if it's not the full 15 minutes, but you've made that commitment for at least 10 minutes of active studying, is important because you've worked hard, you've been in class for 70 minutes at talking about all different kinds of subjects, you've taken in so much information, and now you're bathing your brain one more time before you go to bed. That takes a lot of effort. You should be proud. The second thing is take perspective. A test is a test. Just like Mr. Kasuf said, most of you at home did not remember what you had for lunch on your 5th birthday. And most of you are not going to remember that one test question and how it was worded and how you got it wrong 10 years from now. What you're going to remember is your overall experience and if you felt proud of the work you put forth to accomplish your goals in high school. That's what you're going to remember. So remember, the test on your screen is just pixels. It's not a villain coming after you or a dog trying to chase you. It's pixels on a screen, and all we're trying to do is learn what you can remember and recall and show in that moment. That's it. After that, we move on and we get better at the next item. And last but not least, if you struggle to take that perspective and take pride and you've lost your self-confidence right before that test, take a breath. Take all that negativity, crumple it up, take a breath, and let it go. You guys are going to do awesome. Believe me, you will see a difference by having this commitment made. In our next slide, there are several more strategies that we have, and it's just too much to fit in for this time frame, including contact information for tutoring, best contacts for our school, and most importantly, talking to your teachers and asking the questions. Remember, they're there to help you. So you can go through the rest of these slides at your own time and your own place if you'd like. If you'd like me to speak later on about any of these in particular, I'd be happy to address individual questions. But for now, we're going to kick it back to Ms. Benfield and just say thank you for your time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. We really appreciate the conversation that we had with Ms. Sebastiani and Mr. Kassouf about developing study habits. We are going to take a break over the next couple weeks due to the holidays, but we are very excited to be back here for our evening series to talk about registration as we prepare for scheduling our classes for next year. So we hope you have a lovely evening, and we will see you into the new year. Have a great evening.